Women come here to Sri Lanka for the men?
European women who are about 60, 65, 70 years old.
No matter how long you've lived here, the locals won't recognize you as one of their own. They think you're taking away their bread. The police find a bag of weed under your desk. This is the easiest way they can deal with any foreigner they don't like, regardless of the documents you have.
If a person feels unwell, they hold a ritual where they expel the demon using special dances. And that's what happens.
If you come agitated, you will find a conflict.
If you're a woman, you can get into a lot of trouble. The locals are like crazy perverts.
No, of course not. The ocean wind, the sun, that view. It makes you happy in the morning regardless.
The land of plenty. This is what the name of this country means in Sanskrit. That said, it has been perpetually on the verge of the fall for the past few years and has done everything it can to open its borders to foreign tourists who bring money here. Just like in India, the rule of thumb here is it costs double if you're white. Many women fly here for the same reason a lot of men are coming to Thailand. Yes, folks, you heard me right. Exactly that. This island has been ruled by the same family for over 100 years. It's a paradise for surfers, winterers, remote workers and freelancers. The prices here are also nice and the nature is just incredible. In this video we're gonna explore the life of the people on this island and Sri Lanka itself. This is Expats Sri Lanka. Enjoy! Vladimir, a web developer and professional surfer from Ukraine, will talk about his life in Sri Lanka. Once he went to Sri Lanka to spend the winter and felt that this place could be his home. And that's exactly what happened. Vladimir has been living on the island in Hikkaduwa for 11 years with his wife and son, working remotely and running a travel business. He explains why Sri Lanka attracted him so much, names the main mistakes of the newcomers and shows some very soulful places. Hey, this is not a standard Hikkaduwa. It's quiet, beautiful, there are some jungles and it's a 5 minutes drive from the ocean. What is this place?
It's 3 miles from Hikkaduwa. There is a big river with a fishing port. It's called Eco Villa. The owner of this place inherited the land and made it a botanical garden, an art gallery, and it's one of the most beautiful places in the country. So, the nearest building is 30 miles away, the mansion of British architect Beavis Bawa.
How did Sri Lanka enter your life?
My family had a seasonal summer business on the Black Sea coast, and we were always working and missing out on summertime. And I've always wanted to go somewhere in the winter for the warmth, the ocean, the fruit. That's how Sri Lanka entered my life. It was 2011. We flew in on a wilderness trip. Before we started looking it up on the internet, all we knew about Sri Lanka was that it was the former Ceylon, the home of Ceylon tea. And during that month, we spent our entire budget here, $1,500 we had allocated. And we've covered nearly 1,500 miles, I believe.
What did you like most and what struck you most in this country, on this island?
Well, it all started with fruit. We tried these local lemon bananas. It was a blast of flavor. They were cheap, you could buy them anywhere, and they were quite nutritious, and drinking coconuts too. We barely drank water, we just drank coconuts. I was very surprised that everyone was smiling. Everyone is friendly. Everyone wants to help. And, of course, the ocean. The ocean made the biggest impact because you could feel the power of the elements. That you have to be very respectful with it. That you have to understand what you're entering. And that feeling, when you come out of the ocean, that feeling of purity. It's one of 2 lakes surrounding Hikkaduwa. There are 2 temples on this lake. One is still somewhat accessible, and the other temple is closed. Monks from around the world come there to meditate. You can't sail on this lake with a motorboat, only with paddles.
At what point did you decide that you wanted to stay here to live and that Sri Lanka would be your permanent home?
When I started to feel that it was pretty safe.
Is it safe here?
It's very safe here. I mean, if we compare it, let's say, with Bali or with a big city in Ukraine or Russia, there's hardly any crime here. I mean, I often forget my keys and my scooter. If you leave your stuff behind, you come back, it's still in the same place. That is, in case someone wasn't looking for you. You forgot your phone. Overall, the island gives people back the spirit with which they come here. If you come agitated, if you want to argue for some services, you find a conflict. The island welcomes those who arrive without expectations with gifts. Anything that tourists may experience here, it's all just due to their own mistakes. For example, if you went to the ocean where the current is strong, or got into a tuk-tuk in a cab, and didn't agree on a price in advance. Because sometimes when you get out, the price is completely different. This place is eco-friendly. Everyone drinks water from wells. It's safe. The food is quite tasty. Good fruits and vegetables. And the ocean here is gorgeous.
Hey folks, for the past 15 years I've spent at least 6 months a year away from home making movies in different countries. And at this moment when I'm recording this call to action, in my list there are 63 countries. In the next half a year I plan to add another 5 new countries. My channel is dedicated to incredible stories of people's lives in different parts of our planet. I meet both expats and locals, explore unique places you may not have heard of, and inspire you to travel. Let's explore this world together. I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the channel, and please let me know in the comments if you like this movie and what country you're watching from. Tamara, who moved here 8 years ago, will share her life story as a woman in Sri Lanka. She lives in Ahangama and knows all about the life and traditions of the locals.
I came to Sri Lanka 8 years ago. I had no intention of living here. I had no intention of staying here. I had not ever even planned to live abroad. I had my own travel agency in Russia. A very large number of my travelers flew to Sri Lanka and they were telling me how beautiful the island was. At one point, it was really motivated me to visit this island. I invited my friend and we flew to Sri Lanka.
Tamara was enjoying a paradise vacation and did not even suspect that very soon her life would change dramatically. A local guy Manju saw the happy tourist but never dared to approach. The vacation ended, Tamara flew back to her homeland but remained in the heart of the Sri Lankan. Through acquaintances, Manju found a way to contact the mysterious foreign woman and wrote hi. That's how they started communicating and it turned into a great love. The couple is now raising 3 children and making tourists fall in love with the island. Tamara, what difficulties did you face when you came here to your future husband and stayed here to live?
That was a very challenging time. It took me a whole year to get used to not knowing anyone, to not knowing the language. The only positive thing was that my husband knew Russian. I didn't speak English at all. I had no concept of the Sinhala language at all. Now I can basically communicate if I need to, without learning the language, either in English or Sinhalese, but I can communicate. But at that time, the Sinhala language seemed to be incoherent and incomprehensible. No friends, no parents here. I mean, you fly away from your whole life. In Russia, I had a fairly well-established life. I mean, I had everything. I had my own travel agency. I worked at the university as a teacher. I passed my PhD defense. I had no idea why I'd come here. I fell in love. Yeah, okay. But I think there was probably some other way to address it. For example, offer to come to my country. But this was out of the question too, because while there are many Sri Lankans who want to leave the country, that Sri Lankan had no intention of moving. He flat out refused.
This guy, on the other hand, was more than ready to move. Meet Sasha. He moved to Sri Lanka 10 years ago, co-founded a guest house with a local and met the love of his life here. Sasha lives in Hikkaduwa, shows tourists around the island and never ceases to admire the beauty around him. He talks about the mindset of the locals, the history of Sri Lanka and the hardships he has faced over the last 10 years. I had a different idea of Hikkaduwa, I'll be honest with you, Sasha, because I was told that it's basically Sri Lankan Pattaya with tons of tourists on the beach, mostly so-called seals. They said it's 10 times worse than Unavatuna and probably 100 times worse than Ahangama, where I live. Then I arrive and see this beautiful beach with virtually no people around. Was that a misconception or did they just not want me to come here?
I've been here for 10 years. In my time here, I've seen several different Hikkaduwas. In the 90s, there was even a Hikkaduwa populated mostly by Finns. Hikkaduwa spoke Finnish back then, and there was a Finnish village with Finnish names. It suddenly became trendy in Finland. Over the past 10 years, the situation has changed many times here too. And the Hikkaduwa you've described, it was real. It started in 2015, when a Russian tourist flight traveling from Egypt to Moscow blew up, and Russia suspended all flights to Egypt. That was a destination where people went to have all-inclusive for non-English speakers, and it was a place for that kind of simple, middle-class getaway. And the middle class went elsewhere. They were flying here to have an Egyptian-style vacation. They checked in. There are a couple of big hotels there. There's a small beach next to them. They were coming out of it. They had a supermarket that sold rum, and a hotel, and a beach across the street. And they were all sitting on it on towels, and there were also no waves because it's a bay. So, other people who came to the beach, they saw this one patch where people were lounging on towels, lying almost on top of each other. Lots of them. So, that's why I've heard these stories many times. That here, in Hikkaduwa, the beach is narrow, it's small. There are lots of people lying around. Although the beach here looks like this, it was also a surf center before. There just weren't any others. There's a place to train, a place to snorkel. It's long. And here, in Hikkaduwa, you just have to find that point that you like best. We're 2.5 miles from the coast. It's no longer a tourist area. White people rarely come here. But there are advantages. It's cheaper to live here, it's quieter, the plots of land are bigger, the houses are bigger. Overall, it's quieter, so it's very pleasant. Here's a rice field next to us, a lake 200 yards away, a volleyball court here, a hospital on the other side nearby. I mean, this place has it all, and it doesn't matter if we're 3 miles from the coast or 30. It's going to be like this. We're in a Sri Lankan village now.
When did you start feeling local here? Do you feel like a local here at all?
You can feel like a local here, but no matter how long you've lived here, the locals won't recognize you as one of their own. It doesn't matter if you're married to a Sri Lankan woman or you're a white girl who's married to a local. You'll always be either sir or ma'am. It doesn't matter if you've lived here 50 years, 60, they won't give you citizenship, and you won't be a local here. Everyone is a tourist. The people on the shore, the Sri Lankans, they love tourists because tourists are rich. They're kind, they bring income, they don't commit any crime. They don't make any scenes. People just came, had a vacation, left some money. Everyone's smiling, everyone's happy. As soon as you want to stay, the locals immediately realize that you've been here a long time. You're no longer a tourist, so you're doing some business. Otherwise, where do you get the money from? You don't go to work, do you? And problems may arise if they see you trying to do the same thing they do. They're very jealous. They think you're taking away their bread. So you shouldn't be doing what they're doing. No restaurants, no cabs, no tourism. You have to do something different.
So basically anything you can make money from is out. Do you have to work remotely then?
Remotely, yes. This year, I got a fiber optic internet connection at home. And that's it. I can work fine. Before that, pretty much everyone on the island was on 4G. And before that, until about 2013 or so, everyone had ADSL.
We walk past girls sunbathing nude. Is this allowed?
No. The girl's risks being locked up. It's 14 days for public indecency. It is strictly forbidden to sunbathe topless. We are in a Buddhist country. They actually have 4 religions here. There are Buddhists here. There are also Muslim and Hindus here, and they are absolutely against it. You might have noticed, the locals swim with their clothes on. I mean, the local women swim in dresses and shorts. If someone is topless, people have every right to call the police, and that's it. In Sri Lanka, if you're a woman, you can get into a lot of trouble with the locals because of the lack of communication. I mean, it's rare, but unfortunately it does happen. And again, not because the locals are crazy perverts, but because they aren't used to seeing any of this. And when you start drawing attention to yourself on purpose, i.e. going to the store in a thong and some netting, it seems outlandish. Naturally, he'll try to talk to that person and he may want something that he can't get from his woman, or maybe he doesn't have a woman, and that's really it to it. It's honestly a crazy thing, you know?
In neighboring Thailand, it's common for men to travel there to visit women and men, all sorts of that. That's sad.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, women come here to Sri Lanka for the men? Is that true?
Yes, they do. European women come here a lot. Among my social circle, there are European women who are about 60, 65, 70 years old, and they actually have friends or even husbands who are young boys, 30 to 35. Well, they may not be very young, but compared to a 60, 70-year-old woman, it looks weird at the very least. I believe it's a mutually beneficial relationship. A young Sri Lankan man gets money, which he actually wants from this woman, and the woman gets a young, good-looking, handsome Sri Lankan. and everyone's really happy and everybody gets along. That's just how it is in the world here, you know?
I've been talking to the locals, and the man said the following. We are officially forbidden to have intimate relations with a girl before marriage. However, I asked, have you ever had intercourse before marriage? They said, well, yes, I have. I said, how come? They answered, well, they are divorced women. I was like, European women? No, they are divorcees. How does it work here?
In fact, a girl cannot, especially in the villages. I am not talking about Colombo now. A small percentage lives in Colombo, only 10%. Colombo and the surrounding areas, the modern youth live there. So, essentially, they can do anything. Well, almost anything. But in small towns and villages, a girl can't go out on her own before marriage without being accompanied by older relatives. I mean, she basically has to go with her mom even to the store, not to mention dating a young man. They can't get a hotel room. They must provide their passports when checking into a hotel. If the police suddenly arrive at that point and find out that they are not legally married, that, again, could also result in jail time or a huge fine. Well, most importantly, it will cause disgrace. A huge disgrace to the girl's family. Another example, very, very telling. About 2 years ago, a young married woman and a young married man developed a relationship with each other. I mean, they have families. The woman gets pregnant. What would be the reaction in Europe, for example? Either divorce or leave it as it is, basically forgive each other and move on with their lives. But they jumped in front of a train.
Do you remember your first year here? How did the island greet you? What did you face here and what was difficult for you? What did you love about it? Like, damn, is that real?
Is this real? Doesn't go anywhere. I initially came here with the girl we broke up with here. So, it was stressful and overwhelming. But of course, the ocean wind, the sun, that view, it makes you happy in the morning regardless. You wake up and you feel good. And then the usual and perhaps more frightening stress kicks in. I didn't know anything about the tourist season. That was the biggest shock of the first season for me. The fact that it's actually this hard. And when we started working, we had a guest house here. And in this guest house, I counted later, there was a restaurant there. I talked to about 1,000 people in a season, and I lost my voice after 2 months. I'd never experienced that before. I woke up one morning and realized I just couldn't speak at all. And I laid down for 2 weeks. Yeah, I was having a really hard time. I stopped recognizing people. I was confusing the guests of my restaurant with the residents of my guest home. I couldn't remember who was from where. They all blended together. I fully committed to this work back then when we first started doing it. And then I had no time. In fact, to think about life and how it all should be. What life is. Because I got here in 2012. The season started. That's when it kicked in. It was the kind of test that, as far as I'm concerned, a lot of people who come here to try to start a business, they fail it. Anyway, it's a village. There are some big village clans here. They don't like outsiders of any kind. When someone from Colombo opened a store here, they disliked it just as much as they dislike foreigners who try to establish businesses here. It's just that they're from Hikkaduwa, and every penny that goes to non-Hikkaduwa folks here feels painful to them. I've seen a dozen foreign businesses start up in the same way, because you come, find a local partner, without whom you can't do anything here, and invest money. And then, after you invested money and worked hard establishing this business, you get visited by the police and they find a bag of weed under your desk and say, "Goodbye, it was a pleasure working with you." The person is deported, their money stays here, the establishment is open.
They just plant drugs on them?
Yes. Well, this is the easiest way they can deal with any foreigner they don't like, regardless of the documents they have.
The judicial system doesn't work?
First, tell me how long you've been here.
3 weeks.
What does work here?
The sun rises on time and sets on time. It rains when it's supposed to.
In terms of just the business, I have to say that the hardest thing here is to organize your business so that you have it scalable and all that. Because it doesn't work well. In this jungle, everything is done manually. And you always have to keep an eye on every single thing and every single step of every single person. Because anyone can make a mistake, anywhere, totally unexpectedly. We have probably 70 people working for us right now, and it's very difficult to train them, especially with all the people who are trainable and can do it. They immediately get promoted or become self-sufficient and stop working with us. And it's an endless string of training people, of which 80% are good for nothing, and the 20% that are good for something, you lose them next year anyway.
What difficulties did you face when you decided, that's it, this is my island, I will live here, and I had to change, adapt, acclimatize, adjust?
In no way should you think, this is my island. Because as soon as you start to consider something your own, you immediately come into conflict with someone, with your neighbors, with your partners. The lighter the attitude, the easier it is. If you have some problems, let's say they started construction near your house. Yes, they make noise. Yes, they make dust. But you don't want to bother them in any way or do anything about it. It somehow gets resolved. Because Sri Lanka existed long before white people, and they're self-sufficient. So even if the whole world, humanity's culture disappears one day, Sri Lanka won't change much. The most hot-headed are the young people, the local guys. I mean, you go out to surf, you follow the rules, you surf, but as soon as you start taking the coolest waves, you are immediately confronted. Who are you? Why did you come here?
The locals confront you?
Yeah, the locals sit on the spot and they don't let you ride if you're catching cool waves. If you're hanging out on the sidelines somewhere, just chilling, no problem. But as soon as you start to catch the juiciest waves, you're in trouble. It stopped, probably, after about 7 years, when people realized that this man lives here. He helps everyone. Your reputation is very important. So, when there's a talk of you, when people say nice things about you, everyone immediately starts treating you well. We face difficulties, basically, every year. The visa issue, no matter how long you live here, you cannot get citizenship. The most you can get is a resident visa, one of them either business, educational, or medical. Almost everyone has a medical one because it's the easiest to get.
How much does it cost and how do you get it?
You can't just come to the Department of Migration and say, "Hello, I need a visa." You need some reason or people you know. Almost everyone is on a medical residency visa. If you just want it done, you pay $750 to a person in the know, i.e., a helper. The visa itself costs $200. The rest is for the work of the helper.
What does it take to start living comfortably here?
You have to let go of things you're used to. First and foremost, it's the food. The groceries are different here. You can't walk into a convenience store and buy Parmesan. They just don't have it. You have to switch. If you're a meat lover, you have to switch to tuna here. It's basically like meat. If you can't live without buckwheat, you need to bring it with you. The key is figuring out where you want to live. Because every village on the coast, Hikkaduwa, Unawatuna, Wiligama, Bentota, they all have their own particularities. For example, Hikkaduwa is, like, more homely and family-oriented. Because people who have lived in Hikkaduwa all their lives, they keep living here, and they don't let outsiders in. Everyone here has cousins, brothers, and in a neighborhood of some 5 to 10 restaurants, they're all relatives. If we go to Unawatuna, more people go there. So it's a more touristy place. So you choose where you like it best. I mean, do you like to say hi to everybody every morning? Or do you like to just ignore everyone, go to the beach, and act like a tourist?
Is there any Ukrainian Russian-speaking community here? Do you meet, socialize, help each other or not?
If you round up everyone I know personally or remotely, there are probably somewhere around 200 people living on the island. But practically everyone lives here like islands. We don't get together very often. We don't see each other very often. It should be some kind of event, either a party of some kind or some kind of flea market, where everybody can sell different things that they make. Or we can get a part-time job on a production, on a TV show set, on a commercial set, on a promo set.
Part-time job.
Yes, because when there was a lockdown on the island, there was a shortage of white people, and pretty much every expat was invited to star in something. Advertising, TV series, commercials. And they were very good events, because we met, we bonded over an interest with no competition. We just sat around, socialized. It was a great bonding experience.
You get around on a scooter, isn't it scary for you to ride? I mean, those crazy buses that pull out and you just have to get out of their way.
It's very often quite uncomfortable to ride. It's quite dangerous. But we have to do it because there are no other options. Cars are very expensive here. They're 3 times more expensive here than in Russia. All these mini buses that go to the airport, they cost an insane amount of money. Sri Lankans get them on credit for 10 to 20 years.
Please tell me briefly what I and the folks watching us now need to know about Sri Lanka.
The English came here in 1832. If I'm not mistaken, maybe 1830. That's when they brought tea here. There was a drought. Crops failed. The coffee they were growing died. They brought tea here. They brought Indian and Chinese varieties here. In the mountains, there are Indians who were brought there by the British, separately from the Tamils, who lived here long ago, because these Indians knew how to grow tea. And in fact, the way they organized it all here, dividing and conquering, was that the Indians were in charge of it all, and the Sinhalese were subordinate to them. When the British left, then the Sinhalese had a serious grievance against the Indians, because they were sort of
superior.
Yes, and they started to oppress them. They started pushing them, trying to ban the Tamil language, to leave only Sinhalese. And after that, in 1982, the Tamils finally declared, or tried to declare, their independence. And that's actually the main thing you need to know about Sri Lanka and its service. 1982 to 2009, 27 years of civil war. But it didn't reach this place, and people still came here. They came to Hikkaduwa in particular. I mean, there were hippies here back in the 70s, and there were surfers here. But it was all backpackers, volunteers. But the real big money invested by the big tourism corporations didn't get here. Because any foreign ministry of any country, it had a bias. There was a civil war here, and mass tourism was not coming here. These 30 years were very important. At the time when these cheap transcontinental flights appeared, when the European middle class developed.
The emergence of the internet, social media, Airbnb, booking.
The internet came later, in the 90s. But all this time, they were outside the system, They were living in their own timeline. Then, they got hit by a tsunami. In Hikkaduwa, in particular, everything was destroyed here, same as everywhere else. But they immediately started to rebuild here, replacing their destroyed huts with guest houses.
Sasha, is this one of your guest houses? You also have the Doors guest house, right?
This is called Willow Lotus. Yes.
You also had restaurants.
Yes.
Do you still have them?
No.
Do you own it all or lease it?
No, of course not. We were in the center of Hikkaduwa, right where the action is. We had 7 rooms there, a restaurant. They called us Strange Russian Place. We had some, I don't know, hipsters hanging out there, electronic music playing. Everything was so nice and chill. They didn't really know if we were Russians or not. And we were in the top 10 on TripAdvisor already. I mean, it was a well-promoted place. And we paid this man, the owner, $15,000 a year in rent for 5 years. So over 5 years, we gave him $75,000. And over these 5 years, he put exactly $0 back into the building we rented from him. Zero. 5 years.
0?
Yeah, in Sri Lanka. Imagine not renovating a property at all for 5 years in Sri Lanka. The building is deteriorating, naturally. Everything needs to be fixed. Ceilings are leaking, air conditioners don't work, water doesn't drain. We did silly things like renting people a room that cost $50 for $10. Because we're very sorry, but if it rains, it's going to pour on your head and all that. And he, the man, just squeezed us dry. Because he knew that we were here. The name is there. The clients are coming. Booking.com, TripAdvisor, reviews. We can't leave. So he wanted us to renew the rent and renovate the place at the same time. But we knew that if we did that, then we would then be left with no money at all in 6 months. Because whatever we earn in those 6 months, which we should have enough for the other half of the year, would go to that. Then, we had a very similar situation with a rented garage and restaurant. But Gayan was fighting tooth and nail about it, and basically he said, that's it. We're just gonna work with our own property from now on.
Is he a local?
He's a local, of course. He said no more rental properties. But owning a property just means loans and all that. I mean, a loan here and there for the Doors too. But that's his. Gayan's relationship with the banks. It's his property.
You're making money on this, aren't you?
Well, I earn some money if I help Gayan here to rent something. He'll share it with me. If Gayan rents his properties himself, it's his money. Because he's the one paying the loans.
How did the country reveal to you? How did the island reveal to you? What surprises you and what still surprises you?
People here amaze me. Having lived here for 8 years, I've seen 2 extremes. I mean, there are people who are willing to give their last, do anything for you. They're really kind. Typically, these are people from the inner part of the island. But there are also people who are willing to do anything just to make money, just to screw you over in some way. The poorest section of Sri Lanka is probably the Tamil population. Unfortunately, tea plantation workers, female workers are paid very little. I even remember strikes. I mean, they refused to work. They achieved a wage increase. Just so you know, they used to get $4 a day. Now, instead, they actually get $5 a day, but only on the condition that they reap 44 pounds of tea a whole day. Yeah.
Please tell me about the mindset of Sri Lankans, at least the ones that surround you every day. What is it like in everyday life? How do they live and how does their mindset differ from ours?
Most Sri Lankans are lazy. Okay, you can't say that. They're not exactly lazy. If there is an opportunity to make money and work, they will work. And if at some point there is no work, they won't worry or think of something to do. Unlike us, we adapt to every situation in life. We can figure something out, start some other business, do something else, restrain, do something else. They're not like that. They'll sit on their hands and, well, it'll pass, then it'll come around, then it'll be fine.
What about family relationships and the relationship between a man and a woman?
I have the impression that a woman is a second-class citizen in most families here. So, at the beginning, there's a honeymoon phase. Then the woman is a mother, the woman gives birth to children, and the woman basically deals with the household, and her opinion doesn't really matter that much in the family household or what the man thinks.
Sri Lankans are very kind, quiet, and peaceful people. Traditional Sri Lankans don't drink alcohol. They don't swear. They don't shout. They are calm, friendly. Let's put it this way. They are good-hearted and very open-minded people. Before 2018, women were not allowed to buy alcohol.
What's the difference between the people who live here in Hikkaduwa and the people who live further away in the villages, a little bit outside the tourist area?
There is still a caste system on the island. A person's last name can tell you what area of the island they're from. If you come, say, to Kandy and say that you're from Hikkaduwa, they will be suspicious of you because they'll think you're dealing drugs and scamming tourists. That is, Kandy is populated by educated people who consider themselves very decent, and they consider the people who live on the shore to be fishermen who don't know anything, don't know how to do anything, and live only on their quick profits. Overall, there is a crisis of trust on the island. People don't trust each other. A Sri Lankan is willing to work with a total stranger who's white, but he'll be nervous to work with another Sri Lankan. So, they do all the business within the clans, within their huge families.
Yatraiva yatraiva manomadiyam tatraiva tatraiva tava swarupam yatraiva yatraiva manomadiyam Sari Gari Gamaga Madama Samama
Let's talk about religion. I know there is some kind of black magic ritual that pretty much everyone goes through.
You probably mean the exorcism ritual.
Yes.
If a person doesn't feel well, has some problems, or something strange happens in his life, or something doesn't work out, overall, they have a strong belief in spirits, in horoscopes. They do everything by the hour and on the advice of an astrologer. And this overlapping of astrology and these exorcism rituals fascinates me. What is it? If a person feels unwell, they hold a ritual where they expel the demon using special dances. I'm not kidding. It really takes place, and they really believe it. During an exorcism ritual, people go into a real trance. They say they feel better afterward when it happens.
If we are talking about Sri Lanka, who is the island for and who should come here?
Come to live?
Yep.
First, if you come here to live, you need to make sure you live here legally. There are a lot of Europeans here, a lot of our compatriots who stayed here who are trying to work. But my strong piece of advice to these compatriots is, if you want to stay here, open a business and do it properly. Yeah, because, believe me, Sri Lankans want to make money too, and they have every right to get rid of those people who legally don't own anything here. They have the right to kick them out in a heartbeat. And there have been such cases. My friends also experienced it. Unfortunately, some people get wrong visas, like a work visa instead of a business visa. They rent houses, renovate those houses, start receiving tourists, but they have wrong documents. Say hello to the country's blacklist. And you just can't come back here again for about 3 to 5 years.
So, to open a business, you need preferably to have someone local, A, in the company, B, so that you have some kind of protection. And so, anywhere you go, you have to pay money to the
Yes.
locals. Even now, when I call the cab, a car, they offer me a tuk-tuk
Yes.
ride. Not cheap. I bargain with them, they don't want to. I take the cheaper option. For the same price, I take a car, a good one with AC,
Yeah,
comfortable. They won't let me in. They're banging their
Local
sticks,
mafia, yeah,
fighting.
yeah.
Go away, it's our turf. But they don't provide the service I want.
This is how it works here. A certain number of tuk-tuks are assigned to a certain hotel. They have the right to pick up tourists from this hotel. And if any outsider comes up to them, another tuk-tuk driver, they'll just chase him away and then he'll be gone.
Do you feel safe letting your kids outside?
Yeah, it's safe here. There's some petty theft, yeah, maybe there is. Yeah, I did encounter it. It was pennies. Oh, I can tell a story about my encounter. I put my sunglasses on a towel on the beach. That was back in the early days. Sri Lankans passed by. I'm standing there nearby. One of them bends down, picks up my sunglasses, goes on his way. Hey, dude, what the hell? Come back here. Those are my sunglasses. Oh, sorry. He comes back, puts them back. All right, it's all good. Went on his way. That's it.
Your wife, Yulia, does she help you with the business?
It's more like I'm helping Yulia.
Alright, the mindset of Sri Lankans, or Lankans, how do you say it?
What surprised me here the most? Here, you walk around, you don't see any women. There are no female cashiers. It's mostly guys. Yeah, I couldn't understand that. So why do we have these strange men working all the time, who are washing dishes for some reason? Let's hire women. Let them work. The girls here, village girls, they don't have the right. They call it a big girl party. I think it has to do with their first menstruation. Yeah, and she's considered a young woman at that point. From that point on, she can't go out after sunset without being accompanied by her dad, brother, or the young man she's gonna marry. If something goes wrong, she won't marry. There's a fascinating thing with the Buddhist calendar, the full moon calendars. We have Sunday. That's 1 day off per week. And here they basically have 1 day off a month. It's a full moon. And these moon cycles, no government organizations work on a full moon because it's a day off. The New Year's celebration, it's April 13th to 14th. But the moment of the new year is also calculated by astrologers. They just sit around saying, this is when it's going to be this year.
What always amazes me the most is that they don't really analyze the situation. They just don't have it. They live right here and now. That's how it is.
There's a huge cockroach over there.
Oh, a cockroach. It's okay. I had an incident 2 years ago. We call it last season because it was the last one. A cobra crawled within 10 inches of me. I was sitting at work. There's a desk behind me, and I hear a rustling noise. I turn around, and there's this 5-foot monster. I jumped back. It said shh to me and crawled away. But it then opened its hood, so I saw it. I filmed it and sent the video. I was told it was a real cobra.
We live in a world where we have time to film anything.
We live in the jungle. You shouldn't come here with arachnophobia, with a fear of spiders, because you'll go crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's get back to the mindset. Anything else to add?
Our agreements with them have no value at all. Even if you leave them a deposit, for example, for a house you want to rent, a week later he can find a more profitable renter despite your deposit. He would come up with any excuse to tell you why he couldn't rent the house to you now.
Naturally, if the first person has some reservation from Booking.com for 4 days, and then the other person comes in off the street and says, "Rent me this room for 2 weeks," of course he'll rent it to the second person. They don't think about the future.
While we were driving here from Unawatuna, it's Gale Fort, a very beautiful, cool place. Did you see the accident? The Russian-speaking tourist got knocked off the scooter along with a tuk-tuk
Right as we were
driver.
driving there?
Everything stopped all around.
I didn't see that. This must be right after we
And
left.
then a huge truck, a local cargo truck, almost ran off the road. He just decided he was in charge. That's it. And we had no room to move. So I am a little stressed out now. Let me just breathe in, breathe out. That's it. Let's talk about the local mindset and who they are, the Sri Lankans.
Overall, we can say about Sri Lankans that they are some of the kindest, calmest, and friendliest people on the planet. Their greatest value is their family. All major holidays are all family celebrations. Our New Year is a dinner party. Their New Year is to visit all the relatives. No matter if you have 10, 30, or 50 of them, you have to visit them all.
What is their relationship within a family?
Young people, under 20, under 22, sit at home.
Who's in charge in the home, the man or a woman?
It depends on the family. It's usually the man, because the woman takes care of the house. The man earns money. A Sri Lankan woman usually only takes care of the house. So you rarely see a woman driving. In Colombo, in the big city, it doesn't matter whether it's a man, a woman, everybody has an office job there. Here in the South, it's mostly men who work here. Here, guys meet girls in a very curious way. They don't go to clubs. They have segregated classrooms in schools. Classrooms for boys, classrooms for girls. So a guy finds a wife primarily via advertisements. They put out an ad that there's this guy. He needs this kind of wife. Or a girl puts out an ad saying that there's this girl. We're looking for this kind of guy. He should work in this field. His income should be this high. Another thing is the horoscope. There are these Indian square horoscopes that moms and grandmas sit around and calculate these things. They can be counting for 6 months or even a year. Then, the guy and the girl, if things are more or less fine and their families have agreed, should date for at least 5 to 7 years. Then they get engaged. A year after the engagement, they can have a wedding. And only after the wedding can they move in and live together wherever they want. During this time, the groom must build or prepare a house, get his business in order to bring his new family into the house.
Are you already married?
No.
Not yet? When are you gonna marry?
Next month.
Next month. Is it true that in Sri Lanka you cannot sleep with each other before you marry? Really? So you didn't sleep?
No.
Did,
No.
Okay, got it. But do you kiss each other? Yes? That's allowed?
Yes.
Okay, God bless you.
How does your family have fun here?
We walk along the beach, we drive to Gale Fort, we eat ice cream, we go to a restaurant, we walk around the fort, we go to coconut plantations, we go to waterfalls. And of course, there's always something to do at home when you have a child. We don't have much free time because we're on our own here. All the moms and grandmas were left behind, so we don't have a lot of time for fun. And all our activities, they're all family activities.
Tamara, we are at your house in Ahangama where we started. It's Ahangama, right?
Ahangama, that's right.
Yes, people want to learn about everyday issues such as the cost of living, education, medicine, food, and the climate.
If you aren't a foreigner, you have moved to Sri Lanka, you should expect that all the prices for you will be much higher. I mean, all the prices. For example, we started building a house. Initially, we were buying the land. I mean, my husband already has 2 plots of land, but his relatives live there. I absolutely did not want to live with my in-laws. The search for the plot of land started with my husband choosing it himself. He went and negotiated the price himself, and then, when he had already agreed on the price, he brought me and showed me the land. And what is the reason for this? The reason is that for a foreigner, the prices are different by default. It can be several times higher than for a local. Consequently, if you're moving here planning a construction project, you need to find a person that you're confident in. Otherwise, I can't even imagine how much the price would go up. Food, groceries, and regular stores and supermarkets is a stable price, same as on the price tags. If you are in a local market somewhere, however, the price will naturally be higher for you. When Sri Lanka was on lockdown, the price tag on fish, on fruit was much lower. Now it has increased even for locals. Locals only eat curry rice. It's easier for them, so their diet is rice, vegetables, fish, and chicken. Basically, their price doesn't change much. They'll just politely tell you to get lost. They'll say, well, if you don't want it, then you don't need it. And that's that. You don't need anything else but that. So the locals there, basically, their price doesn't change that much. If you want to lower the price, for example, in a market or somewhere like that, try to smile and be happy. If you start freaking out or something like that, you don't show any kind of anger at all, it won't be a good sign for you. Like, it just won't work at all. And you won't get that price that you wanted. They might get super, super angry at you, and then they'll just tell you to leave and say, well, you must not want it, so you really don't need it, and that's it. The price tag of our lifestyles is high because, first of all, we all have a car. That's like number one. A car is really quite expensive. Our car is on a loan. That is, we haven't paid off that loan just yet. We spend somewhere around 70,000 rupees every month just on that loan, and we own our house. Electricity costs around 10 to 15,000 rupees on average. That's the electricity bill. Depending on whether we use AC or not, because if we do, it can go up to 20,000 rupees, because there's a very unique system here. The more you use electricity, the higher your price per kilowatt. I mean, the locals, my neighbors, they live poor. They save money. They don't have a washing machine. They have virtually nothing. They don't even have a refrigerator, so they get a bill of 800 rupees. We spend at least $1,000 a month. That's the bare minimum. These are our needs, but a car, not the credit, just gas and maintenance, electric payment and groceries, then $1,000 is enough.
Do you have a local babysitter? How much do you pay her?
Of course I have a nanny. It's pretty cheap to have a nanny. Our babysitter is a saint. We hired her for only 25,000 rupees a month. I love the way she works, and I am willing to pay her 1.5 times as much, no problem.
So, 25,000 rupees is a little over $100 and more than...
That's the original price. Casual laborers like nannies, cleaners cost 20,000 to 25,000 rupees. Restaurant employees like waiters, their rate is similar, about 20 to 25,000 rupees.
$100?
Yes.
And the locals live on $100?
Yes, they do. Our neighbors here are deaf-mute. They're working in a factory sewing clothes, as all sorts of brands are made here. They have a salary of 30,000 rupees. This is despite the fact that they are picked up to go to work at 7 a.m., they start working, and come back at 5 to 6 p.m. So you can't imagine how long it is. They're gone 12 hours a day, and they're getting 30,000 rupees for that kind of work.
What about healthcare here?
Speaking about healthcare in general, Sri Lanka has public and private clinics. Anyone can come to the public clinics. Even if you get sick, you fall ill, and you don't have insurance or you don't want to use it, you go to a public clinic and it'll be free. Despite not being a resident, if you're just a tourist, some first aid will be provided for free, no problem at all. And even if it's more serious, they'll do it for free. If you are a tourist and unfortunately you got sick and you do not have insurance, then get ready for the fact that the price tag will be absolutely enormous if you go to a private clinic instead of a public one. It's gonna be thousands of dollars. Well, basically just like in any country for tourists.
Speaking of household issues, let's make a brief overview. Cost of living, how do you, your family make money, education, medicine?
For a white person, excluding rent, because it's different for everyone, some people need a small house. Others need a villa. With $1,000 a month, you can feel comfortable here without denying yourself anything. We go to restaurants, take tours. On $1,000, you can feel perfectly comfortable. Renting a home long-term, it costs anywhere from $350 to $400 and more. And water. Water in Sri Lanka is cheap, plentiful, very good, clean, and safe. The water's fine. Electricity. Electricity in Sri Lanka is around 5 to 7 times more expensive than in Russia. It's super expensive. And there are all sorts of different rates. The more you use it, the more you pay. So blackouts are common. So if you're coming as a freelancer, you should take an uninterruptible power supply or a laptop with a good battery. And be sure to have cell phone internet to be able to work even when there's no power at all. Not in the hotel, a full blackout. Cooking gas. Now the situation in the country is very rough. You can't buy a gas cylinder in Sri Lanka. You can stand in line for it from 4 a.m. and fail to buy it because the country is in a dollar crisis, and it's hard for them to import gas. Fuel is fine. Gas is the problem. I'm hoping that in a couple months, this problem will be resolved, and it will be like it used to be. All of our gas is in cylinders. A cylinder of gas that lasts for 3 months costs $10. As for the internet, 4G internet covers the whole country. Enough for work. There are standard plans, there are unlimited plans. It's enough for work. For the last year or two, it's a comfortable place for freelancers to work.
Are you planning to stay here with your family or are you gonna move somewhere else?
As long as we don't have any issues with the educational system, we're fine here. Because it's quite expensive to study here, and you have to drive your child. I mean, we're in Gale now, and we live in Hikkaduwa. That's 10 miles. That's 40 minutes one way on the local roads. It's very hard for a child to drive 40 minutes back and forth every day. So for now, we're homeschooling. We're gonna find some online courses. If we happen to stay in Sri Lanka, there are international schools here. International daycare centers. You can find anything. The cost of education ranges from $500 to $4,000 per semester. The education is conducted in English. The certificates are recognized everywhere. The teachers are foreigners. So, you can fully educate your child.
You are a professional surfer, but you probably don't give lessons because it's hard to deal with the locals here and all that. How do you make money?
Yeah, I don't do lessons because surfing is more for the soul. How do I make money? I rent out villas, houses, apartments, make driver's licenses, visas, rent out scooters, cars. My partners do transfers, taxi, tours. Yeah, tourism is how we make our money here.
Also, I believe you're dabbling a bit in IT.
Oh yeah, remote work too. Yeah, I'm a web developer.
I have a hard time finding decent vegetables here, no matter how hard I look. Maybe I am not good at searching.
No, look, first of all, there are supply disruptions all over the world right now. There was a lot of imported stuff here too. Right now, there are no dollars in the country. Restrictions are all around. There used to be 3 items of goods that had 100% tax. Cars, for example, which are probably the most expensive in the world here. And now they've expanded it. They have 620 items on the list. So they're making sure that Sri Lankan importers of these goods are not taking these dollars overseas. They're restricting it in every way possible. This applies to food as well. At the same time, there's food that grows in Kandy and in those areas because...
Do they specifically grow those European vegetables that aren't available here?
Yes, they grow them all. Yes, and that's why they come from there. But all these things, any of these foods are seasonal. Ilya knows better about that. Some days avocados are cheap, some days...
Now that it's winter here, it's off season for fruit. The season starts in April.
Yeah.
Avocados are expensive now. Avocados cost the same here as they do in Germany.
Your family of 3. How much money does it take to live here a month?
600 max. $600 a month, yeah, for living, roughly speaking.
$20 a day.
Does that include food and transportation?
We're riding scooters. We have scooters. We have a house.
No, $600 plus the house.
Plus the house.
That's what I mean.
How much is the house?
Our house is $300.
So, $1,000. It's not a lot considering that we eat mangoes. It's expensive. We buy fish. We eat shrimp. You have to understand that we don't buy them on the market. We get them brought to us by Gayan, for example. But sometimes we stop by and shop too.
Fish is very cheap here. Here in Gale there is a fish market. Yulia, my wife, buys both shrimp and fish very cheaply.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for your story. Your contact info is in the description of this video. I think Yulia will get more messages. Yulia, you can handle a lot of requests. A big thank to you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, folks, as you can see, Sri Lanka has incredible sunsets, nature, kind people, unforgettable places waiting for you to explore them. Be sure to visit this place. Peace and love, everyone, and remember that wherever we move, we always bring ourselves. So the mood you have when you arrive in these cities and countries will affect the way you perceive these people and places. See you later. Look forward to more new exciting episodes on my channel. Lots of exciting and helpful content coming soon. Take care. Bye bye.